When Craig, who worked at an animal sanctuary, saw a beautiful deer lying lifeless on the road, his heart sank. But what happened next left him stunned and completely speechless, as if something unbelievable had just taken place. Craig worked at Hillside Animal Sanctuary just outside Norwich in the UK, a place known for helping horses and cows that had been mistreated on farms. It was a place with a big mission, and over time they had saved and cared for thousands of animals. The sanctuary was started back in 1995 by a woman named Wendy Valentine, who loved animals and wanted to fight for their well-being. Her main goal was to help animals in need and raise awareness about the suffering so many of them go through in factory farms. Today, Hillside is home to about 4,000 horses, ponies, and donkeys, many of which were rescued from those very conditions. A big team of staff helped run the sanctuary, including Craig, who had always been drawn to animals, especially horses. He came from a family of horse lovers. His mom had owned 3, and his sisters competed in show jumping and dressage. So, when he heard about an opening at Hillside, he didn't hesitate to apply. Right from his first day, it was obvious how much Craig cared. He was hired right away, and he was thrilled. Whether he was treating an injury, brushing a mane, feeding the animals, or mucking out the stables, Craig gave it his all. Every day he felt lucky to be doing something that mattered. He loved the tough days just as much as the easy ones because he knew his work made a real difference. Like the time a frail old cow arrived at the sanctuary. You could see its bones. It had clearly suffered. Craig took it upon himself to help the cow recover. He checked on her daily, sat with her, stroked her head, even worked nearby on his laptop during the long nights when it seemed like she might not pull through. But she did. Thanks to Craig's patience and care, the cow regained her strength and lived out her last years peacefully and happily. Then, one early evening, after a long day at work, Craig was on his way home. It was that time of year when the sun took its time setting. He drove carefully along the narrow country roads that wound from the sanctuary to his village. That's when he saw something lying in the road ahead. At first, Craig figured it might just be some trash tossed from a passing car or maybe a broken bumper left behind. But as he got closer, his heart skipped. His eyes widened, and he let out a quiet gasp. What he saw lying there made his chest tighten, and before he knew it, his eyes were full of tears. He turned on his hazard lights, pulled over, and stepped out of the car slowly, walking toward the shape in the road. He wiped his eyes as his worst fear was confirmed. There, right in the middle of the road, was a large deer. It wasn't moving, and Craig could tell right away it was dead. But when he gently placed a hand on its head, he noticed it was still warm. That meant it had only just died. Probably hit by a car, Craig thought, knowing how fast drivers flew down those country roads, whether it was bright out or completely dark. He silently hoped the deer hadn't suffered, that the impact had been quick, leaving no time for pain. If it had been hit at speed, that was likely the case. Sadly, thousands of animals lose their lives on roads every year, especially at night. They often don't see the danger until it's too late. They don't understand roads like we do, and for many, that first encounter with a fast-moving vehicle is also their last. Some places have tried to reduce this problem. In Finland, for example, they came up with a clever idea. They paint deer antlers with a safe, glow-in-the-dark paint that reflects car headlights. Even if a driver doesn't see the deer right away, the glowing antlers give them a chance to slow down. It actually helped cut down on accidents. But for this deer, even in daylight, luck just hadn't been on its side. Craig stood there quietly for a moment, saddened by the scene. Then he reached for his phone to call the local authorities. The deer couldn't stay in the road. It was dangerous for others, and leaving it there felt deeply wrong. But just as he began to think about how to move the heavy animal, something caught his attention. The deer looked unusually big. It had a proud frame, and the antlers were striking, but it was the belly that stood out, round and extended in a way that made Craig pause. Almost without thinking, he placed his hands gently on it. That's when he felt it. Movement. A kick, then another. Strong and clear. His breath caught in his throat. The deer was a mother? She hadn't just been pregnant. She was about to give birth. Craig froze for a moment, completely stunned. Somehow, through the crash, the baby had survived inside. It felt unreal, like a moment out of a dream. But there was no time to waste. He had to act quickly if the fawn had any chance. Thankfully, Craig always kept some basic medical supplies in his car. He was trained in emergency animal care. He rushed to grab his kit, then repositioned his car so its headlights lit up the entire scene. The sun was fading fast, and dusk was settling in. He worked carefully, gently, doing everything he could to free the baby from its mother's body. Eventually, with his hands trembling, he managed to bring the tiny fawn out into the open. It was breathing. It was alive. Craig wrapped the newborn in a soft blanket and carried it back to his car, his heart pounding. As the authorities arrived to take care of the mother deer, Craig gently turned his car around and headed straight back to the sanctuary. He knew there'd be people there who could step in and help. The tiny fawn rested quietly in the blanket beside him, blinking and looking around with wide, curious eyes. It was a shocking way to start life, but it was still life, and that meant there was hope. Despite the mother's large size, the baby was small and fragile and needed immediate care. As soon as they got back to the sanctuary, the team jumped into action. They fed the fawn right away and made sure it was nursing properly, then gave it a full checkup. Thankfully, everything looked okay, but they all knew things could still go either way. The little one needed round-the-clock care. That meant feeding every 4 hours, keeping warm, and making sure it slept soundly and safely. It was a huge job, but Craig didn't hesitate. He stepped up immediately. After all, he was the one who had helped bring the fawn into the world. He felt deeply connected to the newborn and knew he couldn't walk away from that responsibility. And it paid off. The fawn was strong. Against all odds, it kept fighting, and slowly but surely it began to grow and thrive. A fawn without its mother wouldn't last long out in the wild. But somehow, this one had been given a second chance. Anyone else might have driven by the deer without realizing she'd been pregnant. But Craig, with his training and his deep care for animals, saw what others might have missed, and because of that, the fawn was alive. That once fragile baby grew up to be one of the healthiest animals at Hillside Animal Sanctuary. It lived peacefully among the cows and horses, always full of energy and curiosity. It became a favorite among the staff, known for its playful spirit and bright presence. And it was all because of Craig, his quick actions, his calm thinking, and his huge heart. Of course, the deer would never be able to thank him in words, but she didn't need to. For Craig, just seeing her alive and thriving was more than enough. So now it's your turn. What did you think of this touching and unforgettable story? What would you have done in Craig's place? Do you have the same love and compassion for animals that he does? We'd really love to hear from you. So be sure to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more stories like this one. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below.